All right. Finals time. Best of 5. Starting on Tropical Sacrifice. Top right. It is Mal's Esports HeRoMaRinE. In the bottom left, as the blue Terran, it is uThermal. No longer on a team, eagerly awaiting Stormgate. Big time content creator, blessed to see him here. Bless, child, bless. Just absolutely ripped Clem apart in a TvT, showcasing some of the patch with Mass Raven, and then actually just showing some good old-fashioned TvT. Good reads on when he can deliver the killing blow. Clem tried to use some of the new TvT, and I think it was just very uncomfortable. Clem is a very good player who I think can adapt to opponents, but I don't think, he's also learned very much to adapt to very weird things. But I think when I say that, I mean that he adapts his own standard play style. I don't think he can go into the mud with the people, right? That's how some people would approach playing a very wacky game, is to just be like, you know what, fuck it, like I'm gonna do something weird too. If Clem ever does that, I think that's just much worse for him. He might one day become a player who's totally capable of doing that. But right now, I think Clem is a talented player, but as far as that kind of ungodly amount of innate understanding and like intuition that they would say, he who shall not be named, so there we go, had, maybe that's not Clem, actually. Maybe Clem has just worked super, super, super hard on a lot of the standard things and perfected the minute details of what makes that tick. uThermal is more of a freewheeling spirit, so he's always done pretty well when it comes to the balance changes. He's always been able to go with the flow, experiment a little bit, abuse things when they first come out, including new maps. Would, I think, abuse some of the things, show the Terrans what to do in some of the tournaments that would happen for the new maps. HeRoMaRinE has, I think, found himself more in the middle of the two, Clem and uThermal. He was certainly much more well-known, and is still mostly well-known for his macro and his own standard play. But whereas Clem still feels basically rigid, someone who has unfortunately been forced to change, perhaps, we'll see, time will tell. HeRoMaRinE was more willing to experiment in the last couple of years, I think. So, still don't think he's as much of a willow tree, just blowing and moving around. Very go with the flow that uThermal is. But I think that he will, one, have the power of, what's the word I'm looking for? An experience. But he basically has the power of watching that unfold. Like, he was probably watching on someone's stream that all going down, so he's going to know what to expect. But he's also, I think, just going to be more confident in the decisions that he makes to take care of whatever uThermal did, where I'm sure Clem was probably plagued with doubts in both games as to how exactly to approach this. And sometimes that's all it really takes, is just being doubtful that something is going to work. You might be right, you might be wrong, but if you're just from the get-go assuming it's not going to work, it already goes, goes a little bit worse. HeRoMaRinE's going to go for a very typical Cyclone drop, whereas uThermal has opted for his Reactored Hellion opener once again off of a high ground command center. Things are going a little bit screwy right from the get-go. Raven's going to pop out for both of them. Again, faster. One's already out for uThermal. And an auto turret can still be very helpful, but it would have loved to have been buffered by something, like actually have a unit or two it's still attacking. Not SCVs. Just a handful of Marines would have been helpful. Auto turret doesn't last as long. It's not as healthy. SCVs are better at fighting. Shall always make a point of, but they are not the end-all be-all fighter, never will be. Second Raven pops out, another auto turret. Tank pops out, much more importantly. And we do have, at the end of the day, dust clears. uThermal down by 2 workers. uThermal is going to have a Raven lead. Just got an amazing shot off on a bunch of units right there. Oh, Interference Matrix is not ready to go. But it will be eventually, and HeRoMaRinE still has to respect that. No longer a nerf to Interference Matrix. Can't emphasize this enough in this. We're in a TvT. It's 11 seconds still. 11 seconds disable on any unit it touches. Big changes are to the auto turret. HeRoMaRinE is not looking to let up on this aggression. Going into the main, uThermal realizing this is most likely going to be a two-pronged attack, scans the front, sees that one, it's disengaging, but then two, how big the army is and how much of a threat the forward attack will be. With auto turrets now locked and loaded in the Ravens and a tank still ready to go too, it would just basically come down to uThermal paying attention in time to block any forward attack. Similar way for both parties. No super abuse of the Raven in this particular game. Both players going up to 3 of them. uThermal's had his for longer, but has also been using the energy more often, so he's actually a little less locked and loaded than HeRoMaRinE. Big difference here. 2 Vikings from uThermal are really going to save the day, actually. It's not that he was super on the ropes. It wasn't that he was near death, but this would have just gotten more and more annoying. Now he's going to go for the actual... Oh my god, the auto turret's coming down. It feels like they're coming down quicker. It feels like acceleration change, but I know it didn't. Everyone spammed auto turrets. The party was had. It is now over. Apparently, the Ravens of uThermal survived. Oh, it just kind of makes sense, because he was the one that had Vikings. Okay, that does make sense. I mean, all of them went over auto turrets and shit, but now it ends up working out. I mean, you'd usually say that, so that would actually still be a bigger benefit, actually, is having 2 more Ravens in your opponent, even if you had 1 less tank or 2 less Vikings. But having 1 less tank and 2 less Vikings and auto turrets being technically worse, the auto turrets are definitely worse. Just the amount of Ravens could still be troublesome. uThermal is in trouble. He's also been behind on building a 3rd command center. HeRoMaRiNE's actually done. It's already in orbital. It's on location. uThermal never quite getting the game going. Was always being attacked. Was always having to deal with something. And that seems to be the reason that HeRoMaRiNE's going to win. As far as the actual engagements, I don't think uThermal displayed any total, miscall or miss micro. Just that he's been more so on the runarounds, getting units, even if they were not big power units, like the Ravens picked off. uThermal is not going to give up quite yet. It is a TvT after all, but there's still no 3rd CC on location. Or not even on location, just in base. I'd say that uThermal's time in this game is very short. It's going to go for the desperate play. The 2 medevacs heading over. Decide not to commit themselves, because HeRoMaRinE does back away. uThermal's instead going to try and do a push with this. These units, we're going to try and catch some of the units. They are not really going to be all that successful, though. HeRoMaRinE, fortunately, choosing a very good path. Having his army all collected like this. And he should be able to respond to an attempt to burst through the middle as well. Yeah, he'd be fine with that. Yeah, he's fine, actually. There's not enough Marines here. Just 1 tank causing a lot of problems. Even a handful of Marines from HeRoMaRinE helping out. So Viking if uThermal tries to land to help on the ground, but the repair is good. uThermal, it was a good attempt. The last attempt, sure, but... it was good. It just wasn't enough. Not at all. Looking forward to more examples of TvT. The 2 games that uThermal played against Clem made him look like a genius.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing the overmind.
His last game versus HeRoMaRinE made him look like, well, a retired pro versus a current pro. Even though HeRoMaRinE, if you recall, technically said he was going to start taking a step back from StarCraft 2. Yeah, he never did. Thanks, Roberts Bob, for the 15 months. So many laughs in so little time. Yuck, yuck, yuck. So far away. If auto turrets overperform, they can be changed. The rumor is that the PTR is going to be live January 5th. Now, if you believe it, I would say latest we should expect it is next Tuesday, right? Tuesdays usually their patch day. Because anything later than that, and it's getting too close to Katowice to be reasonable for the professionals. Even if this really was a patch where nothing changed drastically, it still would be really uncool. But if there is a chance that something is going to change drastically, so TvT in the early game or TDZ in the late game is kind of the two that people are pointing to most of, then it's downright bad to only give professionals 3 weeks to practice. Goes for the same concept for the maps as well, which we're supposed to be getting new maps whenever they do the patch. And the difference of 3 weeks, 6 days, and 3 weeks flat, can be a big difference. It's still not enough, I would say, of course. I'd still say that it should already be out, really. Katowice is earlier this year than it has been in previous years, and that's something that I think people have to be reminded of. But, generally, the longer they wait, the worse it is. The less cool of it is for them to do that. Gonna broadcast Stormgate? Probably. Assuming it doesn't suck eggs. If anyone has said no to that question, tell me, because I'd be shocked. I feel like people come in asking, are you gonna full-time switch? Are you gonna try it at all? Are you gonna only stick with StarCraft? I don't know. Are all asking really like the same question. Because I assume all of the answers go along the lines of, if it's good, I'll spend time on it. Because anyone saying they're going to full-on switch to a game that hasn't even been released and might suck is dumb. Anyone who says just full stop, they're going to entirely switch if they're making any sort of livelihood on StarCraft is also dumb. You can tell them I said that. There's basically no reason to not at least do some StarCraft, even if you're planning on really full-time switching. Anyways, rants aside, finally in game, uThermal apparently was shoving biscuits as quickly as possible into his mouth. So, bottom right, HeRoMaRinE, top left, uThermal. uThermal identifying a big weakness of that last game as being hungry, I suppose. You usually don't have players, I think, eating necessarily mid-series, but... apparently. There you go. Looking forward to the new maps. Hope they make wider maps for big engagements. The problem with making any of the engagements bigger, I actually think this map pool was great. I think it was well balanced. I think any of the very alarming potential problems were balanced well with some other aspect to the map. Anyways. Yeah, making anything larger and more open just inherently favors Zerg so much. It just... yeah, I guess I disagree. I think this map pool really struck a nice balance. But I don't know what the new maps might even be. I haven't even paid attention to the map tournaments. And we are lacking communication, as we typically do, which I will always criticize. However, I will say that as much as it needs improvement, it actually still has improved a little bit. Personally, I've talked more and heard more things in the last 6 months than I have in a few years. More up to date, feeling more appreciated as a person in the community, as well as just a general community fan. So there is that. It's improved, but still could improve a lot more. So we have factory expand and factory expands. And they're both opening with the same Reaper Hellion shenanigans. This will be fun to watch. uThermal, when he was a full-time professional player, was certainly very well known for his micro. And at one point, I would say, if there was a legitimate way to tournamentize who had the best Reaper micro, uThermal would be up there. At the very least, top 3. Him, Kelizer, Bjorn. Maru was in the conversation, but actually this is basically around the time where Bjorn was super abusing Reapers, so it was basically Bjorn. Bjorn was number 1. And then you had every other Terran being pretty good with them, but who really shined? Actually, uThermal was quite good. But that was many years ago, and he is no longer a full-time StarCraft 2 professional player. And as such, we do expect the other full-time players, such as HeRoMaRinE, to shine a bit more when it comes to these engagements. So that is a lot of different things. It's not just can you pull a Reaper back when it's injured, you know, well, 10 out of 10. It's how you set up, it's how you initiate, it's how you anticipate. And right now, HeRoMaRinE is actually losing on all those fronts. So there you go. He did not go for as many units. No, he did. Yeah, for sure. He just lost the Hellion right off the bat. So he goes up a ramp thinking that he's going to be the one in charge, and uThermal was actually waiting for him. Huge difference. uThermal making that about as easy as possible by being prepared. Now it comes down a little bit to who's the better concave and who gets that micro. Right now, uThermal is winning. He is. But these engagements with the crowd control, with the rapid rate of fire, it just changes very quickly, very fast, and uThermal is not going to try and push his luck any further with reinforcements on their way. It's going to pull back and use those units at a different time. Second starport's on the way for uThermal. Lickety splits. Now, this is what Clem tried to do, and I don't think Clem is as practiced in it, even though it had started to make its way into even the pre-patch meta a little bit. It still was very rare, and only a few Terrans were doing it. So especially now with the new changes, I think Clem is just not going to be used to this. So he didn't really showcase it all that well. We're going to pay attention to what makes the difference here. Sorry, it's the cool guitar riff. We do have uThermal going for a run-by. That's basically what we'll call that. HeRoMaRinE was trying to control the situation a little bit more, and now they're both going to meet in the middle, even while they're both coming from their... They're dead! They swapped their locations on the map and still met in the middle, and basically nothing happened still, so that was fun. That was a good time. Anyways. 3 ratings to 3 right now. So here's the big difference that I did suspect happened, but I wasn't sure of because I wasn't paying super close attention to the first game of uThermal Come. Well, actually, I was not so well versed that I could say confidently what you're supposed to do with 2 starports, so I didn't say anything about Clem's decisions. But as far as I remember, this is the far more typical way to go into the double starport afterwards. It's not for literally mass Raven, even with the new changes, and I think that's something that could change. Maybe Clem was onto something and just didn't execute it properly, but we were seeing more the transition into triple Viking production. than we were seeing just consistent Ravens. So this is much more typical, especially to what we were seeing before the patch. And we have our big battle in the middle of the map. Interference pitches on HeRoMaRiNE's tanks are still in effect. They're going to get bodied, destroyed, taken out. And uThermal has effectively dominated the fight. I guess dominated is too strong of a word since the supplies are still so even, but him having the Viking control and still 2 tanks alive with more reinforcing is a really bad sign. But it's a lot more about positioning and control with the AoE units than it is about numbers to numbers. And we can see also, if we do check, the numbers are not exactly truthful. HeRoMaRiNE is up 16 workers, so down 30 actually is already bad enough. But even if he wasn't, he still would have been in a very difficult place with the tanks allowed to come across the map, the Vikings obviously taking control of the skies. And this is how a person in HeRoMaRiNE's position would die. If he was going into bio, which he isn't, by the way, but if he was going into bio, he would have to wait until he has combat shields, not just stim, but also combat shields. So to take an efficient engagement with combat shields, you'd also need like 20 plus Marines, right? And that would just be so long. That would be so far away, and you just have more reinforcements from uThermal. Instead, that's not what's happening. I don't think it would have worked anyways. But uThermal is going up against someone who has now gone into triple starports, so hey, gotcha. I have one more than you. But, you know, the problem with the timing of the starports here for HeRoMaRiNE, since he was so quick to his economy, he was late to his production, is that they don't have reactors. And reactors take a hell of a long time to finish. It's not even about the cost right now, it's about the time it takes. So, can't really afford to do that, well, under all this much pressure, but also can't not afford to do that. Truly stuck between a rock and a hard place. Gets another tank taken down by the Cyclone. It's been a very effective Cyclone. It probably deserved to live, but it just died. Womp womp. And uThermal tightens the noose. It's getting scary. HeRoMaRiNE has almost reached the number of Vikings he needs to take care of this. Say almost, his 9 to 9, but I guess uThermal is also rallying his Vikings, so yeah, uThermal should just have shit. HeRoMaRiNE should have more here. Yeah, he does. The only thing that could have changed that is if the Vikings of HeRoMaRiNE spent time killing the Liberators of uThermal first, right? All of their shots on the Liberator, then all of their shots on the Liberator, then all of their shots on the opposing Vikings. That might have changed it a little bit too, but uThermal is forced to evacuate here. HeRoMaRiNE choosing the engagement time wisely. And suddenly, the Gallows are actually in the rearview mirror. He is not near death at all. He still has an economic lead. 4th CC is being sent out now, so uThermal might be like, hey, I'm still fine here. I got my faster 4th base. No, not really. And, oh boy. Oh, geez. Oh, Lord. Now we're in the late game TvT. Ah, I forgot this part. I forgot if no one wins, we're gonna get late game air TvT. No. No. Fusion core's on the way for HeRoMaRiNE. He's gonna go right into battlecruisers. Dude, if he goes right into battlecruisers. Liberators are cheaper, guys. Didn't mention that when we saw the Liberators at first, but should mention it now. They're cheaper. So there is this kind of like blip of a balance patch. I think it was a mistake anyways, in both that it was a terrible patch, but also that I don't think it should have been implemented. I think some, let's go with the joke, the intern didn't pay attention to the big bright red marker that said do not put in. So we had a Liberator change that lasted 5 hours. And then they were like, no one see this. Don't worry about it. And now the official change is that Liberators are 25 less gas, right? 150, 125? It is right in a battlecruisers. Hi! Hoi! Okay. Well. Great. It's good. Okay. uThermal doesn't know about the battlecruisers. Oh, he does! He saw the fusion core. HeRoMaRiNE scans, sees the army, uThermal could just go into his own battlecruisers. He's not really set up to do that, though. I think he's going to go into Viking. I mean, Ravens aren't bad to have here. I'm actually a little surprised he isn't trying to afford at least a couple of Ravens, because they are cheap now, too. But he's going to go for the punchy army, HeRoMaRiNE's battlecruisers are always going to be the most microable thing here. They have teleport and Yamato. They can do a lot with that. But uThermal has the army that punches you in the face. Vikings, not really Liberators, Vikings, just in mass against battlecruisers. They're going to build faster. There's going to be more of them. In a way, they're microable, and they are now officially more microable because their damage point has been reduced. That was the other stealth buff to the stealth patch. So there's that. Interesting. But anyways, they will be able to overwhelm someone who is steadily making their way to a high battlecruiser count. Because battlecruisers take forever to get out. And they're very expensive. And they don't produce 2 at a time. You know. But when you do get to a certain number of battlecruisers, the problem then is that they get to initiate and reinitiate and take another battle and take another battle and take another battle, and they're all alive. They teleport out as soon as they get low on health. Or they try to. Vikings one-shotting them does make it a little more difficult. So they are still, theoretically, the best army. Theoretically. Both these players very late to their armories. It's been a long game in a short amount of time. But yeah, they've only just started their 1-1s. uThermal has that punchy army that I'm talking about. 15 tanks as well, by the way. HeRoMaRiNE just entirely almost skipped going tanks in this game. It has a very awkward army in comparison, I would say. The 4 battlecruisers will take out 4 Vikings, then probably have to skedaddle. 1 Raven, not even being used currently. I don't even know where it is. uThermal didn't actually have all that many more Vikings, though. I don't think this is actually the battle that he wanted. It's hard to tell. It is absolutely difficult to tell. It's almost like watching Muta versus Muta. How many Vikings more does one of these players have without the units tab? Who the hell knows? But uThermal only had 3 more. So, yeah, the presence of 4 battlecruisers would absolutely boost HeRoMaRiNE's army more. So yeah, that was just uThermal. If he had 30 Vikings to 20 Vikings and 3-4 battlecruisers, he might have won. But only having a few more is not going to work out. Having a couple tanks be Thors instead also would have been fantastic. But the opportunity has been lost. You lose a battle that one-sided, and I think you just die. Also, HeRoMaRiNE's slightly faster upgrades didn't kick in for the fight, I believe, and are now evened out anyways. HeRoMaRiNE might have had an awkward situation if he was up against literally a maxed out Viking player. But 15 tanks, was it? Having almost no use in this game? That's a bummer. That's a real bummer. I also say that 1 Raven is really helpful. Literally 1 Raven. More Ravens could still also be helpful, I think. Against the battlecruisers interference matrix? Yeah. But at least 1, right? For the anti-armor missile, which has been nerfed. It's no longer a reduction of 3, it's a reduction of 2 armor. But still. Yeah, HeRoMaRiNE. I don't know, I feel almost kind of robbed, honestly. I feel like he, not that he didn't deserve the win, it's just that he was not just, given an open door, he was, like, shown the open door. Like, uThermal got his hand and, like, guided him. It was like, here. Oh, well. This is exactly the type of game that I would have assumed uThermal to be a bit better in. With his content and his style of play, more often than HeRoMaRiNE for sure, going mech and late game, mech to be specific, that he would just have more experience there. Not that HeRoMaRinE is totally inexperienced. Occasionally, TvTs of the serious nature do go to this stage. I would have 100% believed uThermal to be a little more... have a little bit more of a buff. Yeah, more of a buff at that stage. Not so. Or didn't get to show it in that particular game, at the very least. In the bottom left of now Inside and Out, it is HeRoMaRinE. Top right in his last life, it is uThermal. So uThermal looked really strong versus Clem. In, I suppose, one very typical TvT. He looked about as what you would expect right now if you faced HeRoMaRinE after no longer being a full-time pro. HeRoMaRinE did really well in the first game with more normal TvT. In the second game, HeRoMaRinE did play a little out of the norm. He was absolutely in trouble when he was up against the 2 starport push of uThermal, but his decision to go into triple starport worked out really well. Absolutely did. It was really still very dangerous. If he misread that and was then again down by 3 or 4 Vikings, then it just would have snowballed, but he pushed out perfectly. And then uThermal was no longer ahead, certainly wasn't in a position to kill HeRoMaRinE. In fact, I think they both came out at a decent place. HeRoMaRinE ahead economically, but uThermal not like that far behind. So that the rest of the game could have still been up in the air. But once uThermal decided to take an engagement when he only had 3 or 4 more Vikings in his opponent that were then matched, replaced with 3 or 4 battlecruisers of his opponent, right? Then that is just better. It's a lot more awkward. What I was envisioning the awkwardness would create is if uThermal had maybe, you know, like 10 less tanks. So a similar tank count to his opponent. And then had 10 more Vikings. I think that makes HeRoMaRinE's building battlecruiser army kind of in a weird teenage-esque phase where it's not really all that, or it's not really all kid, it's not really all adult, it's kind of in the middle, it's like not having a good time. But not with uThermal, not quite investing maybe as much as he could have into Vikings.
Resubscription received.
Didn't have his own Raven as well, which I do think is just something you should be getting. 1 anti-armor missile on that stage is still pretty impactful. And then other option, I guess, could have also been replacing those tanks with Thors. Didn't do any of that, and just immediately made it obvious that HeRoMaRinE is going to win the game. Because that is exactly like a Muta battle, actually, or a Phoenix battle. Difficult to count ahead of time. There's a lot more reading that goes into the rest of the game to determine, do I have more Mutas, do I have more Phoenix, and actually trying to look into the Muta clump and be like, yep, that's more wings. Nailed it. And then when you do decide to go at it, whoever wins really does win. There's no second big Muta ball versus Muta ball situation. Which I haven't seen much of that lately at all. It's almost feeling like a dated reference at this point. CN Wolf, thank you for the 16 months. Return once again to financially support the cast. Thank you. Rob123Aber, thank you for the Prime sub. And Scout C Justice with a gifted sub. Much appreciated, guys. So, analysis of the last game aside, what does that mean for uThermal's chances to bring this series back? I don't know, seems a little low. He lost the normal TvT, he lost the more updated, different TvT. Where does that really leave us? Something in between? Not really. Could just chalk it up and say, hey, lots of players play many normal TvTs and then many more normal TvTs, and it flips the other way, so it's not the end-all be-all who is the winner every single time. But as we are talking about a full-time professional player and more so a part-time player, still very, very high level, still play StarCraft all the time, and would have I think, a stronger grasp on kind of weirder things or the updates, because they are able to focus on that. They are not as good of a player as HeRoMaRinE. I think that is basically a fact. I know it's weird to say. They both got to the finals, but that was also almost basically a fact before uThermal stopped being a full-time professional player. He would commonly come into a series versus HeRoMaRinE or Clem as a bit of an underdog. Not totally, completely, oh my god, this doesn't make any sense if he wins type of situation, but still. And then would, yes, occasionally defeat them. So it's definitely not impossible. It just is, and has been for a while, a situation that if uThermal loses against HeRoMaRinE, all is kind of normal. If he wins against HeRoMaRinE, we look back at the replays and go like, oh, okay, he did this really well, he did this really well. Oh, okay, nice. So, no, it doesn't bode well for uThermal, who's not able to use any of the new tricks that seem to really throw Clem off, to throw HeRoMaRinE off. He's gonna have to play a typical TvT. And I guess that is perhaps the thing he can do the most of in this third and perhaps final game, is to really play a super normal TvT. That's exactly what he's doing. He's playing a 2-base setup, which is not so common anymore to go up to 3 racks on 2-base. It's more so what HeRoMaRinE is doing, 3rd CC, then 2 additional barracks is much more common. But uThermal has also always been one to not necessarily like let go of old meta builds. He's always had them in his back pocket to bring out. I'd say a 2-base committal was kind of an older TvT thing. It's not going to be 2-base all-in, it's not going to be 2-base 5 racks, but definitely prioritizing it over the economy, which means he 100% has to deal economic damage. Scan reveals a 3rd base. He knows that HeRoMaRinE's going to be stretched a little thin. He's going to try and abuse it lickety splits. He's actually going to go for a drop right into Raven Viking. Well, that's unfortunate. There is almost nothing good to come from that, I suppose. I guess you could have retreated faster. But just loses one of his Ravens and is forced to back away. HeRoMaRinE swatting down a fly at this point. No big deal. Doesn't even feel remorse. Just a bug. Seeing Wolf, thank you for 100 bits. Biggest of Gabe's. Ready to mash that Marine button. Smash that bell. uThermal is not totally dead because of that bad drop, but is confirmed behind. I mean, he's still pretty much in a bad position. I mean, he was even position when it was up in the air, when we were like, well, he could do damage or he couldn't do damage. But we opened the box, and the cat was in fact dead. It's like, ah, okay. uThermal is, in fact, behind, dying. It's TvT, so, you know, we give credit to its comeback potential, but uThermal's not getting anything to work for him so far. uThermal is going to have maybe a bit of map control while the combat shields of HeRoMaRinE finishes up. That's all I can say about that, and it's not really bad if HeRoMaRinE says, yeah, you know what, I guess I can't move out, like I'm just going to grab the 4th base, as long as he can get the 4th base up. This is going a little bit topsy-turvy. HeRoMaRinE doesn't have as much as you would like on the front lines. 16 SCVs go down. uThermal finding a bit of a weak point in HeRoMaRinE's defenses. Is finally going to get that economic damage, and yet it's still not going to be enough. He is ahead by 11 workers, but now he's going to lose the remnants of his army as he retreats, gets chased down. I guess HeRoMaRinE wasn't totally set up to defend that location, so it was technically an opening, but at the end of the day, I mean, they started that fight at an even army supply. I'm pretty sure. 'Cause I really didn't think that was going to go as well as it did. But it obviously didn't go as well as it actually did. He lost too much on the tail end of the engagement, didn't take out enough key units of HeRoMaRinE's, was out-upgraded for it as well, and taps out. It will be a 3-0. I am kind of bummed that we didn't see more experimentation. Not to accuse the players of not experimenting, but just that when we saw uThermal Clem, it seems like the very much, this is a patch, this is a change, this is more than just a tiny ripple effect. And we went into the finals and it was almost all as we would expect. Second game was a little different. Still not enough though. That's it, guys. GG's. Thank you for watching this channel for the coverage of the Open Cup. Hope you enjoyed the casts. We got to do a little